Hello, this is Scott Duck with Scott Duck Ministries. I am the blind believer, and this is the first video on this YouTube channel that we're starting for the ministry. And I want to start out by just telling you a little bit about me and just a little bit about our ministry. Mostly I want to talk to you about me and about some of the things that I've been through and some of the things that God has taught me through that. I am completely blind in both eyes. And when I say blind, I mean as in can't see a flashlight if you shine it in my eyes, blind. And I've been through quite a bit of stuff because of that. And God has taught me quite a bit through that. And I'm going to do a lot of later videos on this topic as well as some other things. But today I just want to start out by telling you my basic story and some of the most fundamental things that God has taught me through this. And probably the first and most fundamental thing that God has taught me through my blindness related hardships is that He is always there in the midst of your pain. And even when you're wondering where He is and not understanding why He's not answering your prayers, not answering them at least in the way that you would like, He's always there. Okay, let me tell you a little bit about my story. I was an identical triplet, born 3 months prematurely. I was born on March 21st, 1977. And being born 3 months prematurely was a lot bigger deal then than it is now. I mean, it's a big deal now, but it was a whole lot bigger deal then because neonatal medicine wasn't nearly to the point that it is now. At birth, I weighed 2 pounds, 3 ounces. I lost down to 1 pound, 15 ounces. And I was in really bad shape. I ended up being the only one of the triplets that survived. My brothers, Brad and Chris, lived 20 and 24 days respectively. I obviously did survive, and the only residual effect of my premature birth is my eye condition. I have what's called retinopathy of prematurity, or ROP for short. When a baby is born as prematurely as I was, sometimes this will cause abnormal scarring and abnormal vasculature formation in the retina, which is the photosensitive layer of cells at the back of the eye. And this did happen in my case, and it left me severely visually impaired. I did have a little vision until I was about 19, but it was only in my right eye. I had no vision at all in my left eye. I had a little bit of vision in my right eye until I was 19. That was about 2,500. Which means that what most people can see at 500 feet, I could see at 20 feet. And this did allow me to get around in an area that I was already pretty accustomed to without bumping into too awfully many things. And I could read print very slowly and tediously at about 20 to 25 times magnification. And at the age of 19, I had to have cataract surgery on both eyes. Cataracts are a complication of ROP, very severe cataracts very young. And to make a really long story short, I'll get into the longer version of the story in some other videos, but to make a long story short, surgery on the right eye led to a chain of complications and other surgeries and more complications that eventually ended up that 10 major eye surgeries later, I ended up having no vision at all. The initial surgery that started this chain reaction took place when I was a sophomore at Union University here in Jackson, Tennessee, where I live. It was not initially apparent that I would be completely blind as a result of the surgery. The doctors initially told me that my vision should return. And I was a Christian already at this point. As I've said, this was when I was 19. I had been saved at age 11. And I prayed a lot going through this process of all these surgeries. And I prayed for my vision to return, but I prayed above all for God's will to be done in this process. And I found something out going through this. You know, we say that a lot as Christians, thy will be done. And I found out that it can be really hard to say it and actually mean it once you have figured out that you may not know what God's will is, but you figured out enough of it to know that it doesn't coincide with your own will and that it scares you to death. And I did get to that point, but I still, though I struggled to do so, I prayed continually that God's will would be done in this process. My doctor was Dr. Stephen Charles, who was, and I suppose still is, world renowned as the best retina specialist anywhere in the world, period. And after about 3 or 4 months and as many surgeries, it became apparent that my vision wasn't coming back. And he and I sat down and talked about this. And we talked about all of the complications that had befallen me. And he said, I'm supposed to be the best there is. I've been doing this for decades. I've done thousands of surgeries. And all of the complications happening to you, that have happened to you, happening to one person, statistically should be impossible. He said, I've been doing, as I said, he said, I've been doing this for decades. I've done thousands of surgeries. I've never seen this before. And frankly, if you weren't my own patient, I wouldn't have believed it. So I had struggled to do so, but as I have, just said, I had sincerely prayed throughout this process that God's will would be done. I had the best doctor in the world for the problems that I had, and what he said should have been impossible happened. So I had to accept the hard conclusion that it was supposed to be this way. And this wasn't an easy thing to take. Having life as a severely visually impaired person up to this point hadn't been easy, and life since then, in the last 23 years, almost 23 years, as a completely blind person hasn't been easy either. And, when people go through things like this, and as you wonder why God has let the things happen that He's let happen, in my case, I'm not going to go into all of it in this video, but there's been employment discrimination. School was difficult, both academically and socially. I've been through a lot of things, been through a lot of physical pain as a result of the surgeries, went through years and years of continual 24/7 physical pain. Now I'm down to it only hurting maybe half the time. But, as you go through things like that, it can be easy to wonder where God is in the midst of all that and why He's letting that happen to you. And, you wonder if you're not where you should be in your walk with Him, or if He's mad at you for some reason, or, if He just doesn't care. And that's never true. And I understand why it can be tempting to think that way, because I've been through all that. But God's taught me a couple things that I want to share with you about going through adversity. As we go through things like this and we wonder where He's at, I've come to realize, is with us always if we're a child of His. And He didn't go through what He went through on the cross at Calvary just to then abandon us. And so when He lets us go through things like this, there's a reason for that. And I've discovered, in my case, at least a couple of the reasons why He let me go through what I did. And I want to share those with you briefly. One is that as I've gone through this, it has given God a chance to prove Himself to me, and it has drawn me closer to Him. Psalms 119:67, David said, "Before I was afflicted, I went astray, but now I keep your word." Ecclesiastes 7:3, Solomon said, "Sorrow is better than laughter, for by sad countenance the heart is made better." And I used to wonder what the heck Solomon was smoking there. But through the things that I've been through, God has taught me that this really is true. Because it's in the hard times that I grow as a Christian. Someone has said that we're not built for the mountaintops, we're built for the valleys. And I understand that sentiment, because as I've gone through these things, God has drawn me closer to Him. It's in the hard times that we really grow as a Christian. In a lot of the things that I've been through, I've had to really lean on God just to get through the situation. And when I go through the hard times, I pray more and I get in the Word more, and that's how you get close to Christ. I mean, yes, we should do that all of the time, and many of us do, but let's face it, just about all of us do better about that, about seeking His face in the hard times. Think about something. How do my kids know when they're sick or hurt that I'll help them? I mean, they know that I'm supposed to because I'm their parent, but how do they know that I really will? They know because I've done it before. Well, how do we know that God will be with us through our tribulation, through our hard times? I mean, we know that He's supposed to because it says so in His Word. But how do we know that He really will? As we go through hard times, He proves Himself to us, just like I've proven myself to my kids through their sickness and their other hard times. Well, as I walk through these hard times and He walks with me through them, God proves Himself to me. If He didn't have the hard times, He wouldn't have a chance to do that. So as I go through hard times now, I can look back on the times before that He stood by me and helped me through the hard times, and I can know that He'll do that now because He's done it before, because He's proven Himself to me. Romans 5:3-4 says that tribulation produces perseverance, and perseverance character, and character hope. We can always have hope because we can look back on the hard times and we can see how Jesus walked with us through those hard times, how God walked with us through those hard times, and so we can have confidence that He always will in the future. We can always have hope in that. And speaking of hope, that brings me to the other reason for my blindness-related tribulation, and that is that I'm able to testify to God's role in my life and how Jesus has helped me to bear up against adversity. 1 Peter 3:15 says, always be ready to give a defense to those who ask you a reason for the hope that is within you. So we're told to be ready to give an account to those who ask a reason for the hope that is within us. But ask yourself something. Why would they ask to begin with? Let's assume that things had gone differently for me. Let's assume there had been no premature birth, no ROP, no endless series of complications and surgeries, no blindness, none of the hardship related to that. Let's assume that I had just sailed right through school, got a great job, making lots of money. Would many people have asked me the reason for the hope that was within me? Probably not. Because in that circumstance, most people would probably have assumed that any hope that I outwardly displayed was a result of all my worldly success. Well, what about the way that it did happen? The things that I've gone through, many of them very obvious to people around me, have led a lot of people to say, man, how do you do it? How do you go through all that and still be, positive and still, seemingly enjoy life and things like that, and I can tell them that about Christ and about His role in my life and about how He's helped me bear up against adversity and how my hope is rooted in Him, not in the things of this life. And that's allowed me to reach a lot of people for Him. I do a lot of things in this ministry, but the ministry started primarily by me giving my testimony for church congregations and going into some of the things that I've gone into here and even more things. And I still do a lot of that, but I do a lot of other things too. But that's how this ministry started. And that still gives me a lot of opportunity to tell people about Him. Someone asked me not too long ago if God were to ask if I wanted Him to take back all of the things that I've been through. And if He were to just ask and I told Him that I wanted Him to, if I knew that He would do it, would I do it? And I can honestly say I wouldn't. Because this blindness, that I'm going through, hardships related to it, all that's temporary, as is everything in this life. But the things that He has allowed me to do for Him, and the people that I've been able to reach and to minister to and continue to minister to, the results of that are eternal. And much of my platform to witness and minister for Him has come from this blindness. And if one person comes to Christ or draws closer in their walk with Him as a result of what I've been through, then I'm fine with that. In fact, I'm honored. You know, I said that my blindness is temporary, but the results of what it has allowed me to do for Him are eternal. The things that you may be going through right now, and I don't know what they are, you're probably not going through the same things that I have, but I'm sure you're going through your own hard times. If you haven't, they're coming, because that's just part of life. What you're going through also is temporary. But look for ways that you can use that to make an eternal difference, because I promise you, if you're His child, He will give you ways to do that. And He will empower you to do that. Because like I said, He didn't go through what He went through on Calvary for you just to then abandon you. So if you're going through some stuff, pray about it, ask other people to pray about it. And He may bring healing or resolution right now. Sometimes He does. He's done that for me many times in my own life. He's still in the business of performing miracles. But if He doesn't, there's a reason for that. He loves you more than you could possibly ever understand. Look for ways that the hard things that He may be allowing in your life, look for ways to use that for His glory. And just seek Him and embrace Him through that. Your hope has to be rooted in Jesus. Because I'm going to tell you something. Eventually, you will go through something that will strip away all hope that is rooted in anything but Him. It may not happen the way it did for me, probably won't. But eventually something will happen that will do that. And if you somehow lived a charmed life and that doesn't happen this side of eternity, eventually death will do it. And if you don't have any hope that's rooted, if all your hope is rooted in other things other than Him, then when that's gone, you're left with nothing. But hope that's rooted in Him is eternal. I'll talk more about that in future videos. But that is my testimony in a nutshell. There are many more aspects to my testimony, and I will share those in other videos, as well as many other messages on other topics that are not at all related to my testimony. I thank you for letting me share with you a little about my life and about what God has done in and through me. And I hope that you'll come back, that you'll subscribe to this channel, and that you'll come back and check out some of the future videos. And I plan to post content regularly. And thank you for watching. May the peace that only He can give be with you. Thank you.